The mysterious disappearance of pilot Frederick Valentich in 1978 captured public attention and became one of the most bizarre stories in aviation history. While flying solo over the Bass Strait, Valentich reported to air traffic control that he was seeing an unidentified flying object, UFO, before suddenly vanishing. The strange details surrounding the incident, along with the unexplained clues, have sparked numerous theories about what truly happened that night. Let's dive deeper into the details of the case. The story takes place over the Bass Strait, located south of Australia, named after the British explorer George Bass, who led the first crossing of the strait in 1798. The Bass Strait holds an air of mystery. In the 19th century, many ships disappeared in the area, prompting the construction of numerous lighthouses to assist maritime navigation. The main character of the story, Frederick Valentich, was born on June 9, 1958. He was the eldest son in his family, which was of Italian immigrant descent. In addition to his parents, he had a younger brother and a pair of twin sisters, making it a family of 6 living in the suburb of Avondale Heights, Melbourne. From a young age, Valentich had a passion for aviation and always dreamed of becoming a pilot. After graduating from high school in 1974, he applied twice to join the Royal Australian Air Force, but both times he was rejected due to academic reasons. Despite not being able to join the Air Force, Valentich did not give up on his dream of becoming a commercial pilot. He enrolled in a flight school and began training to obtain a private pilot's license. By February 1977, Valentich had become proficient at flying, needing only to pass the CPL theory exam to be officially licensed as a commercial pilot. Perhaps due to his focus on flying skills, he failed the theoretical exam twice. A year later, in 1978, Valentich, now 20, was preparing for his third attempt at the CPL theory exam. That year, he met a 16-year-old girl named Rhonda Rushton, and they became a couple. Valentich was still a student pilot. Although he did not have an official pilot's license, he had permission to fly. As a result, he would often take his girlfriend on flights. Valentich also had a special interest in UFOs and strongly believed in their existence. When with his girlfriend, they would often discuss topics related to UFOs. One evening, Valentich flew solo across the Bass Strait. Little did anyone know this would be his last flight. On October 21, 1978, a Saturday, his family reported that he was flying to King Island to buy fresh lobster. King Island lies to the west of the Bass Strait and is the second largest island in the strait, with its economy mainly based on fishing and tourism. The fastest way to get from the mainland to King Island was by small plane. At 5 p.m., after completing his training course for the day, Valentich filed a flight plan with the local air traffic control center. He planned to depart at 5:45 p.m. from Moorabbin Airport in the suburbs of Melbourne to King Island. Let's look at the map. Moorabbin Airport is here and King Island is here. The two locations are approximately 232 kilometers apart, with a flight time of around 1.5 hours. After submitting his flight plan, Valentich, feeling a bit hungry, drove to a nearby fast food restaurant for dinner. At 6:10 p.m., Valentich boarded his Cessna 182, a small single-engine aircraft mostly made of aluminum alloy. After fueling the plane, he entered the cockpit and requested clearance to take off from the control tower. At 6:18 p.m., Valentich took off alone. The weather was clear and ideal for flying, but as the sun was setting, Valentich's actual departure was 34 minutes later than planned. He would spend the next hour and a half flying to King Island, meaning he would be flying at night. Valentich, not yet a fully licensed pilot, had accumulated 150 hours of flight time. For a short flight like this, he was confident he could handle the task. Even when flying at night, he could rely on instrument flying techniques. Instrument flying refers to navigating the aircraft using instruments rather than visual references, especially useful in low visibility conditions like night flying. At 7 p.m., Valentich's aircraft reached the Cape Otway Lighthouse and contacted the Regional Air Traffic Control. Cape Otway is located in southern Australia. The Cape Otway Lighthouse, built in 1848, is the oldest lighthouse still in operation on the Australian mainland. At this point, Valentich was flying at an altitude of 1,500 meters when he suddenly noticed another aircraft seemingly appearing below his own. Due to the darkness and limited visibility, Valentich could not identify the model of the aircraft. At 7:05 p.m., Valentich contacted air traffic controller Steve Roby and reported his location. After reporting his position, Valentich asked Roby if any other aircraft were nearby. Roby checked the radar and replied, "There are no known aircraft in the vicinity." Valentich found Roby's response strange, as he had clearly seen a large aircraft with 4 lights, but could not recognize its model. After a brief silence, Valentich added, "The aircraft just flew 300 meters below me." He then asked, "Is there any military aircraft nearby?" Roby replied that no other aircraft were nearby. At this point, Roby was also becoming worried since he could not detect any flying object on the radar. Valentich continued, "The aircraft is approaching me from the east." There was a 30-second radio silence. Then Valentich said, "It seems to be playing some sort of dangerous game. It passed by me 3 times at high speed." At 7:08 p.m., air traffic controller Roby asked Valentich about his altitude. Valentich responded, "I am at 1,500 meters." Roby asked if Valentich could describe the aircraft. Valentich replied, "When it passed, it appeared very long. When it was directly above me, it was stationary. It was always emitting a greenish light with a metallic exterior, shining brightly." The radio was silent for 20 seconds, and Valentich then reported, "It has disappeared." Roby, feeling a bit relieved, heard Valentich say, "I am heading towards King Island and should arrive in about 20 minutes. However, he also reported that the aircraft's engine might have had some issues, but everything seemed to be fine in the following minutes. At 7:12 p.m., Roby again heard a hurried message from Valentich. "That strange aircraft is above me again. It's flying in circles. It's not an airplane." Then a strange sound came over the radio. The sound that followed was a harsh, piercing noise, lasting for 17 seconds, resembling the sound of metal scraping. After that, Valentich ceased responding, and his aircraft disappeared from the radar. Air traffic control immediately recognized the emergency and quickly activated an emergency response plan. 21 minutes after losing contact, Valentich's plane had still not reached King Island, and a rescue operation was immediately launched. 2 minutes later, the landing lights at the entire airport were switched on. Another Cessna aircraft took off from King Island Airport and flew along Valentich's flight path in search of him. The weather was clear that evening and visibility was good on King Island. It was even possible to see the light from the Cape Otway Lighthouse. Based on Valentich's last reported position and flight path, the search and rescue team estimated that his position when contact was lost was about 40 kilometers southeast of Cape Otway Lighthouse. Initially, the rescue team believed that the aircraft's engine might have malfunctioned. The plane was equipped with 4 life vests and an emergency radio beacon, which, in an emergency, could be used to float on the water, and the rescue team could track his location using the emergency beacon. The rescue team sent out a request for support to nearby vessels, and many responded. moving toward the predicted location to assist in the search. The search continued throughout the night, but due to the limited visibility at night, the rescue team could not locate Valentich. At dawn on October 22, 1978, an extensive air and sea search operation began. The search and rescue team deployed a Lockheed P-3 Orion aircraft from the Royal Australian Air Force, along with 8 civilian aircraft, to search the waters in the relevant area. Several vessels also joined the search. The search covered more than 2,600 kilometers, with aircraft searching the skies over King Island and surrounding islands. However, not only did they fail to find Valentich, but they also found no wreckage of the aircraft. A day later, on October 23, 1978, the search and rescue team discovered a small patch of oil in the sea near Cape Otway Lighthouse. They analyzed the oil stain, and the results showed that it did not come from the plane's fuel. A rescue aircraft also spotted a floating object, possibly the wreckage of the aircraft, in waters off King Island to the northwest. However, the aircraft did not have a locator, so it couldn't report the exact location of the object. In the confusion, the plane was forced to climb higher and use the island as a landmark to estimate its location. But as the plane ascended, the wreckage gradually became out of view. The rescue team sent vessels to the site, but they could not locate the suspicious object. The search continued for 4 days. By October 25, 1978, the rescue team still hadn't found Valentich or any wreckage. Since it had been beyond the golden rescue period, the search was called off without any results, and Valentich's whereabouts remained a mystery. Some believe Valentich faked his disappearance, even considering a flight lasting 30 to 45 minutes to Cape Otway. His Cessna 182 still had enough fuel to cover 800 kilometers. Despite the ideal external conditions, his aircraft never appeared on radar, leading some to question whether the plane had ever been near Cape Otway at all. It's possible that after seeing a UFO, Valentich didn't head to King Island as planned, and instead turned back toward Cape Otway. 5 days after the incident, on October 26, 1978, Valentich's friends refused to give up. They spent several days searching near Cape Otway, but still found no results. After the incident, the media extensively reported on the strange circumstances. Valentich's final radio transmission with air traffic control became a crucial clue. Under public pressure, the authorities released the final 17 seconds of the noisy audio, but the earlier conversation was not published in audio form, only as a transcript. Valentich's father, Guido, gave an interview to the media. He said, "My son was a strong believer in UFOs and always worried about being attacked by them. Before he disappeared, he told the family that he had seen secret Royal Australian Air Force documents on UFOs. Since the documents were classified, Valentich didn't reveal the specifics to the family. Guido believed his son saw a UFO that night and was abducted." Following the interview, an article titled "UFO Took Our Boy, Pilot's Parents" suggested that Valentich had been taken by aliens. After the article was published, many people agreed with the theory. More and more witnesses came forward to report what they had seen. One man claimed that at 11:45 p.m., his son saw a green light 120 kilometers from Cape Otway Lighthouse, which he suspected came from a UFO. Another local official reported seeing a shiny metal object flying south that night. The Australian newspaper published a story about a man and his wife who were camping at Bateman's Bay, New South Wales. They saw a bright white object performing crazy aerial acrobatics in the sky, movements that no aircraft could replicate. A month before the incident, a woman living on King Island wrote to a newspaper stating that as she was driving back to the garage, she saw a column of light in the sky moving quickly northward before disappearing near Cape Otway Lighthouse. Additionally, several other witnesses claimed to have seen a UFO the night Valentich disappeared, further adding to the mystery of Valentich's disappearance. More than 2 months after Valentich vanished in December 1978, a new witness, professional photographer Roy Manifold, came forward. On the evening of the incident, he had taken several sunset photos near Cape Otway Lighthouse. At first, he didn't notice anything unusual, but when he reviewed the photos at home, he discovered that in the last photo, in the upper right corner, there was an unidentified flying object surrounded by clouds. Initially, Roy thought the film was damaged or had a flaw during processing, but after rechecking, he realized the film was intact and the object in the photo seemed real. Roy submitted the film to a UFO research organization, and the results showed that there was no problem with the film. However, no one could provide a satisfactory explanation for the image. More and more clues pointed to the possibility that Valentich had been abducted by a UFO, a theory supported by his family. 3 months after the incident, in January 1979, Valentich's father, Guido, wrote a letter to the investigating authorities requesting the full release of the audio recording of Valentich's conversation with air traffic control. However, the authorities denied his request, stating that the case was still under investigation and not yet suitable for public release. This fueled Guido's belief in his theory. With the help of some people, Guido managed to obtain the recording, but he had signed a confidentiality agreement which only allowed him to share the recording with family members. As a result, the full audio recording has not been made public to this day. In fact, Valentich lacked flying experience. He had failed the commercial pilot's license exam twice. Not long before he disappeared, he had just completed his 3rd exam. After taking the test, he and his girlfriend went to his flight instructor's home, Edwin Robert Barnes, to celebrate. Valentich expressed confidence that he would pass this time, but Edwin informed him that, as a reserve pilot, he was not allowed to drink. However, the instructor promised that once Valentich passed, they would celebrate together. A few days later, Valentich called his instructor to joyfully announce that he had passed. But in reality, he was lying. After the incident, Edwin discovered that Valentich had failed. He believed Valentich's disappearance might be linked to his failure. Some media outlets interviewed Valentich's girlfriend, Rhonda, and she shared that Valentich had come to her house at 9:15 p.m. the night before the incident. He appeared anxious and thoughtful. He told her that the next day he would go to King Island and that they would celebrate their 6-month anniversary when he returned. Valentich planned to take off at 4:30 p.m. and arrive at King Island by 6 p.m., then return at 7:30 p.m. However, his actual schedule was delayed that day. After Valentich disappeared, his girlfriend found his car, but there were no clothes inside, suggesting he had no intention of going out that evening. Valentich had told his family and girlfriend that he was going to King Island to buy lobster, but fishermen on King Island reported that they hadn't spoken to Valentich about purchasing lobster recently. The destination for Valentich's final flight was King Island, but few knew the true motivation behind his flight. He had not informed King Island Airport of his intention to land there, which contradicted standard pilot procedures. In the flight plan, he mentioned going to King Island to pick up a friend, which didn't match what he had told his family and girlfriend about buying lobster. Subsequent investigations revealed that both reasons Valentich provided were false, raising suspicions about his true intentions for going to King Island. The case attracted worldwide attention and sparked numerous conspiracy theories, the most popular being that Valentich was abducted by an extraterrestrial UFO. Others concluded that Valentich had faked his own death to escape. According to the investigation, Melbourne police received a report about a light aircraft landing near Cape Otway Lighthouse, leading some to believe Valentich may have committed suicide due to failing the exam. However, his family disagreed with this view. His girlfriend also said, "He proposed to me the weekend before the incident, and I agreed." It doesn't make sense for someone so full of hope for life to suddenly plan to disappear. Another theory suggested that Valentich lost his orientation in space and flew upside down. Pilots can easily become disoriented when flying at night, and spatial disorientation can lead to the pilot believing the aircraft is in one position when it is actually in a different one. This theory was not officially confirmed. Another possible theory for his disorientation that night was the low visibility and the horizon being unclear, causing Valentich to mistake the sea for the sky. After changing his plane's position, he might have believed the plane was flying horizontally when in fact it was flying in reverse, and the light he thought he saw might have been his own plane's lights reflected on the water. However, this theory was also dismissed by investigators, who noted that the Cessna 182 would not be able to fly in reverse continuously because its fuel system would shut off, causing the engine to stop quickly. A theory published in 2013, based on the radio recording and other data from several astronomers and retired U.S. Air Force pilots, proposed that Valentich, lacking experience, was tricked by an illusion of a tilted horizon. He may have tried to compensate and inadvertently entered a downward spiral called a graveyard spiral, which he initially mistook for a simple flight maneuver. There are also conspiracy theories that Valentich, with his interest in UFOs, may have finally encountered extraterrestrial beings and was abducted. However, no one has been able to prove this theory. Historian Reg Watson, who studied the case for many years, stated, "I have looked into this case for over 3 decades, and it is truly unusual. I know many people won't believe it, but I have to say, based on my intuition, he encountered a UFO." He also added that authorities had searched for Valentich for 4 days, but no further clues were found about his whereabouts. Several theories suggest that Valentich staged his disappearance, and there is a mysterious link to whether he truly intended to go to King Island. Valentich had planned to fly to King Island, but according to air traffic control, he never reported his arrival to King Island's flight services, so they didn't activate the waiting lights at the airport. This gave rise to 2 theories about Valentich's disappearance. One is that he planned his mysterious disappearance, or 2, that he committed suicide. The widespread belief that the incident was UFO-related is partly due to the fact that at least 15 reports of UFO sightings were made that night. Most witnesses saw a green light similar to the one Valentich described. Roy's photograph taken on the night of Valentich's disappearance was close to the location where Valentich vanished, which convinced some people to support the UFO theory. 20 years after the incident, in 1998, a researcher from the Australian UFO Research Association, Paul Norman, interviewed a man who claimed to have witnessed Valentich's disappearance. The man stated that he and his 2 daughters were parked on a bridge in Apollo Bay, about 1 kilometer south of Valentich's location. Suddenly, he saw a light aircraft pass in front of them as the sky darkened. Because he had some knowledge of aircraft, he easily recognized it as Valentich's Cessna 182. What surprised him was that, at that moment, a larger UFO was chasing the plane. The UFO was illuminated by a green light and moved behind the aircraft. Half a minute later, both the aircraft and the UFO vanished toward the northeast. Based on this interview description, researcher Paul wrote an article. In the article, he hypothesized that Valentich might have changed direction after encountering the UFO and flown toward the Victoria coast. Shortly after, he may have experienced engine failure and started descending. The strange noises that night could have been caused by the plane descending. The curvature of the Earth may have blocked the radio communication between the control tower and the aircraft, leading to the temporary loss of signal and the strange sounds. Paul believed that the man and his 2 daughters had seen Valentich's plane and the UFO. At the end of the article, Paul suggested underwater searches along the Victoria coastline, but his proposal was not supported. The Stromlo Mountain Observatory provided an explanation for the 10 UFO sightings that day. It turned out that the peak of the meteor shower was happening at that time, with 10 to 15 meteors visible per hour. Some studies have shown that 9% of UFO sightings are actually caused by meteors. Therefore, this theory suggested that the green light Valentich saw was actually a meteor. 5 years after the event, in 1983, some airplane wreckage was found on Flinders Island, 300 kilometers from Cape Otway. The wreckage was sent to the Royal Australian Navy's research laboratory for testing to determine whether it had drifted from the area where the aircraft disappeared. The results suggested that the wreckage might have come from a Cessna 182, the same model Valentich was flying. However, plane crashes were frequent in the Bass Strait, and several aircraft of the same model had gone missing in recent years. Therefore, the wreckage could not be definitively identified as Valentich's, and his disappearance remains a mystery. Despite numerous search efforts and investigations, the disappearance of Frederick Valentich remains unsolved. Clues like the final audio recording, UFO sightings, and the strange discoveries made by photographer Roy Manifold are still not enough to conclusively determine the cause of his disappearance. This case continues to be one of the greatest unsolved mysteries, stirring debate and captivating the attention of UFO enthusiasts, the media, and the public.